Subway system. But we all know that's wrong. What's right? Tice Davids swam as fast as he could through the murky waters of the Ohio River in 1821, escaping the clutches of his Kentucky captor. Unable to explain how Davids seemed to have vanished into thin air, all that the puzzled slave owner could guess was that he must have gone off on an underground railroad. Is that the first known use of the term underground railroad? Not quite. There were no underground tunnels or railroads. It was just a system that happened above ground. Escapees were called passengers, and their guides were called conductors. Pilots trekked south to gather passengers. Resting places were stations. In 1839, an enslaved man in Washington, D.C., escaped from his plantation, disappearing just like David's. He supposedly used a railroad that ran underground all the way to Boston. But that's still not where the name originated. We don't know when or how the Underground Railroad started. So how could we know where its name came from? The Underground Railroad might have gotten its name from the newspapers, the people who used it, or even somewhere else. What's important to remember is what it accomplished and its place in our history.
On the 22nd of September, 1862, the newspapers brought astonishing news. Lincoln was promising to sign an Emancipation Proclamation on New Year's Day. All persons, Lincoln wrote, held as slaves within any state in rebellion shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. The proclamation was the first sign that the president was moving by agonizing steps to a new understanding of the war. For Lincoln, the carnage had become unendurable unless it could be given over to a higher purpose. Still, Garrison was wary. Lincoln seemed to be hedging. In December of 1862, only weeks before the promised date, Lincoln presented Congress with a dramatic peace plan. If the Southern states would lay down their arms, they could keep their slaves for another 40 years. Abolitionists were baffled. In the space of 5 months, the president had declared that the war wasn't about slavery, suggested that all black people should leave the United States, promised to emancipate the slaves on January 1st, and finally offered to let Southerners keep their slaves until 1900. Garrison, Douglas, and every other abolitionist had good reason to wonder whether Lincoln would ever sign the Emancipation Proclamation.
In 1910, Harlem was an upper-middle-class white community. But by 1925, it was known as the Mecca of the new Negro. African Americans came to New York, just as they did to many of the great cities of the North, seeking opportunity. During the First World War, their numbers swelled when labor shortages made better-paying jobs available for migrants. Those who came to Harlem found a place where they were free for the first time to express themselves in ways that seemed inconceivable before.
Many of these people had not been able to pursue their art, had not been able to pursue the opportunity to become a novelist, to become a jazz musician. It simply was not available and possible for them in the restricted caste system that they were consigned to in the South. Suddenly here in New York, finally, we can be the people that we imagine ourselves to be.
It would explode into one of the most artistically fertile periods in African American history.
The Harlem Renaissance represents, above all, Black people really for the first time making a claim on being modern as a people. To say that we are here and this is our contribution.
Here, on 136th Street, in the heart of Harlem, some of the most talented newcomers found a temporary home in a rooming house, which its residents humorously nicknamed Niggerati Manor.
Some of the people that lived there included Eric Walren, the Caribbean novelist and short story writer. Zora Neale Hurston passed through there. Langston Hughes spent time there. They all ended up putting together a kind of salon. It was right here.
Who invented this crazy term, Niggerati?
Zora Neale Hurston playing with the term literati and saying, if they're the literati downtown, we must be the niggerati uptown.
The Brown versus Board of Education case originated in Topeka, Kansas, when plaintiff Oliver Brown filed a class action lawsuit against Topeka's Board of Education in 1951 after his daughter Linda was denied entrance to Topeka's all-white elementary schools. The case eventually made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and on May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court made one of its most historic rulings. Racial segregation in public schools violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause and is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court, however, did not specify exactly how schools should be integrated, which led to resistance from southern states. Although the Brown v. Board case did not achieve full school desegregation on its own, it was a landmark step in the civil rights movement's fight for progress.
I'm here with the EEOC to talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which turns 60 this year. This law embodies the nation's highest ideals of justice, fairness, and equal opportunity for everybody. Today, discrimination still denies many the chance to realize their dreams and fully contribute their talent and creativity to our society. While federal agencies like the EEOC enforce the law, everyone can make a difference and help to advance the vision of the Civil Rights Act. We can be the change in our world, a world where we welcome and include others, and all of us feel that we belong. You can find information about the Civil Rights Act's protections against employment discrimination on the EEOC's website, www.eeoc.gov.
Is a triumph for freedom.
In 1909, the iconic and powerful NAACP was founded. Over the years, the NAACP has made unmatched contributions for the fight for racial equity, social justice, and the civil rights movement. Today, the NAACP's national headquarters is based in Baltimore City, and I can't think of a better home for the organization. Maryland is home to countless incredible black leaders, abolitionists, and civil rights heroes. And the NAACP has been a big part of many of their journeys. I hope you'll join us as we celebrate over 100 years of the organization and its immeasurable impact on our state and the entire nation.
Barack Obama. Do you know who the 44th President of the United States is? Here is a hint. He is the only president who was born in Hawaii. Need another? He was also the first African American to be elected as President of the United States. Who is it? That's right. It is Barack Obama. And today, we are going to learn more about him. Barack Hussein Obama II was born on August 4th, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii. Obama's parents, Ann Durham and Barack Obama Sr., separated when he was just 2 years old, and he spent the early years of his childhood in Jakarta, Indonesia, with his mother and stepfather. By the time Obama was 10 years old, he was back in Hawaii, living with his maternal grandparents. When he was young, Obama went by the nickname Barry, and as a teenager, Barack Obama worked at a Baskin-Robbins ice cream store, but today does not even eat ice cream. In high school, Obama excelled at both basketball and academics and graduated with honors from Punahou Academy in 1979. From there, Obama attended Occidental College for 2 years and then transferred to Columbia University, graduating in 1983 with a degree in political science. In 1985, Obama moved to Chicago and worked with low-income residents and as a community organizer. He then spent some time in Kenya and met many of his paternal relatives during the trip. In 1988, Obama began law school at Harvard. That same year, he also met his future wife, Michelle Robinson. In 1990, Barack Obama was elected as the first African American editor of the Harvard Law Review. He graduated Harvard Law School in 1991. After law school, Obama moved back to Chicago and started working as a civil rights lawyer and a part-time professor at the University of Chicago Law School. On October 3rd of that year, Barack and Michelle Robinson were married and later had 2 daughters, Malia and Sasha. Let's talk about his political life and historic election. Barack Obama was and is a member of the Democratic Party. In 1996, Obama ran for office in the Illinois State Senate and won, working with both Democrats and Republicans to draft legislation that addressed social issues like expanding health care. After losing a primary election for the U.S. House of Representatives in 2000, Obama decided to raise money to run for a U.S. Senate seat. In 2004, during this time, he was a vocal critic of the decision to begin the Iraq War. Obama beat a former presidential candidate and won that election, becoming only the 5th African American to serve in the U.S. Senate and only the 3rd to be elected to the office. In February of 2007, Obama announced his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination and ran a campaign with themes of hope and change, with goals to reform the healthcare system, increase energy independence, and end the Iraq War. On November 4th, 2008, he defeated Republican candidate John McCain to become the 44th president of the United States. His vice president was Joe Biden, who would later become the 46th president. He won the presidential election again in 2012, defeating Republican candidate Mitt Romney. This means that President Obama served 2 terms as president for an explosion.